Vito Bratta is one of the most creative and melodic guitar players to come out of the 80s, but what are the secrets that make his solos tick? On today's video, we learn his awesome solo from the White Lion song Tell Me and find out a couple of them. Well, hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. It seems like a lot of the guys in the 80s shred scene were out to show you every single lick that they've ever learned and every single solo that they played, but Vito Bratta from White Lion really stood out from the rest of the pack in that all of his solos were really well put together, super melodic, and really hooky. And a lot of this is due to the fact that Vito was always so fantastic about targeting chord tones of the riffs that he was playing against. The solo in the song Tell Me by White Lion is a perfect example of this. In today's video, I'm going to give you guys a note-by-note lesson on how to play this solo, and then we're going to go back through it and talk about some of the chord tone targeting concepts that we can take from it and apply to our own playing to make ourselves sound more melodicer, much more melodicer. As always, downloadable tabs, backing tracks, bonus lessons, and so much more are available to everybody who supports my channel, even at just the $1 a month level, over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. In fact, if not for my amazing Patreon community, you wouldn't be watching this video, because about a week or so ago, one of my lovely and loyal patrons suggested that I tackle this one in a future lesson. So become a member of my Patreon community today, and maybe next week's video will be yours. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm playing my lovely PRS Hollowbody here into a MXR GT-OD for just a little bit of boost in front of my Paul Reed Smith Archon 50 Mark II. This amp just hit the market and it's absolutely killer. I've got a video on that coming up really soon. And I'm running those lovely pieces into the Sir RL-IR box. First things first though, we gotta hear those hot licks again at stepdad speed. Hey guys, Uncle Ben from the future here. I actually got done filming the entire video. Spoilers, it's fantastic. And then realized I forgot to film like the very first thing that you heard in the solo, which is that little tapped harmonic thing that Vito does. In his left hand here, he's just forming basic 3-note power chords, right? So you got C, G, and C here on the A, D, and G strings. That's confusing. And what he's doing here with his right hand is just some kind of slapped, tapped harmonics. I'm not holding a pick right now, but you can do these, you know, still holding your pick between your first finger and thumb, and just do the taps with your middle finger or something. But basically what you're looking to do is just to slap the fret 12 frets above the one you're holding down. So 15, 17, and 17. You'll notice there that I'm just pecking them right above the fret wire, okay? And then do the same thing and slide up to your D power chord, okay? Anyway, back to past life, Ben. Alright, licks first, explanations later. Just like my honeymoon. We're going to start off here by sliding around that G string. Also like my honeymoon. Play it again a little slower here. Then we're going to jump all the way down to the second position here on the B string. And then last, we're going to finish up here on the high E. Okay, so that was. And then at the very end of this lick, here's what it sounds like he's doing on the record. Just kind of walking up the scale there, and then hitting the same note that he ended on an octave lower. But I've seen a lot of live videos and covers where people play like an arpeggio instead. Either one of those things is like in Vito's vocabulary to do, but again, if you listen to the record, I definitely hear that high B note on there that isn't there whenever he plays the sweeps. Maybe that's just something he did live that he changed after they recorded. I don't know. So after the mystery lick, we're gonna play. So this is just grabbing the F sharp note here, and then giving it a pre-bent whole step bend. I just want to say about that entire first section right there, whenever I figured this out the first time, I played it in a much more logical fingering position like this. And it was a whole lot easier to play. But after watching as many different live videos as I could of Vito playing this solo, I noticed that he always took it up the third string, took it up the second string, took it up the first string. It is way harder that way. Good luck to you if your drummer is playing the song too fast, making those shifts happen, because they're really tough to do. And then we're going to jump back down the neck and play these licks. And then we do a muted rake on that high E note, walk up the scale, and do some half-step bends. So you'll notice there that that first bend was actually a half-step pre-bend up to the note A. So far in the solo, everything has had kind of an E major, E mixolydian kind of sound to it, but at this point, we get a big old key change, and it changes more to the key of G/E minor. So we're going to be using some different positions and stuff here. Starting off here by sliding into the 5th G. Vito loves doing those little trills. Just kind of puts a little like roughly shirt action into the solos. And then he does this gnarly pinch harmonic here on the 4th fret G with a couple half-step bends. It's a really specific note. Aim for getting it over like the row of pole pieces that's closest to the bridge above your neck pickup. That's where it's working for me. And then another trill. Again, Vito with those things all the time. We're going to jump up here to the F sharp note on the B string. Again, more trills. Now that you're in this position, go here to your high E string and play the walk up to the next section right here. So you'll notice here that I'm barring the 1st and 2nd strings on the 8th fret. This is over the C chord, and we're going to play this lick right here. Then we're going to transfer up a string set here, bar the 7 on the B and G, and play this lick over the D chord. And then over that last B chord, we're going to start off with some double stops here on the G and B strings. And then jump up here to the 16th position for this B major arpeggio. 14G, 14B, 19B, 19 high E. And that's the entire solo. So let's start off again here with those crazy position shifts. is a tasty melodic solo. But why does that sound so melodic and cool, and how does it all work? Hey, what happened? The truth is, I would be doing you guys a massive disservice just to say, well, the first licks are in the key of E Mixolydian, he used this scale pattern. Go have fun and use those in your next jam or whatever. I tell my students this all the time. It's not enough to simply learn the licks, learn the scale pattern, learn what key it's in or whatever. That's not enough. You've got to learn what it's being played over and how it relates to it. I remember early on, whenever I was learning a bunch of solos and stuff like this, I'd learn somebody's licks and I'd learn what key they were in, and then I'd try, similar ideas in my own solos or just rip off their ideas. Sometimes they would land and sometimes they wouldn't. And that's because I wasn't paying attention to, yeah, that lick was cool, but what was it being played over? That's what made it sound cool. Let's start off here by talking about the crazy position shifting licks at the start of the solo that take place over the E major chord, because there's a definite logic going on right here. If you try to memorize these off of the tab and just try to learn 2, 1, 6, 4, 11, 9, 14, 13, 2, 0, 7, 5, whatever, if you try to learn them that way, you're going to have a really, really bad time. At least I did anyway. These licks made sense to me when I started looking at what he was doing, which is targeting chord tones. Okay, so an E major chord has 3 different notes in it: E, G sharp, and B. It's root, third, and fifth, respectively. And with these licks that Vito is playing, all that they're doing is starting one scale tone above a chord tone, in this case A, and then descending down to a chord tone, G sharp. C sharp, that's not a chord tone. B, that is a chord tone. F sharp, not a chord tone. E, back in the chord. Out of the chord, back in the chord. Out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. Just like my honeymoon. So this entire thing, he's following the chord triads. G sharp, B, E. Those are the notes that I'm looking at targeting when I play that first lick. Whenever he plays the second part, it's B, E, G sharp, and B. E, G sharp, B. Then the last one here, G sharp, B, E, G sharp again right here. So it's kind of like as I play this lick, it's not just randomly jumping up and down the neck or, God forbid, thinking about different scale patterns. It's all me sitting here going, chord tone, play the one next to it. Chord tone, play the one next to it, and so on. Makes it a lot easier to see, and also gives you the answer as to why this sounds cool. And again, you got to look at this as like, this is taking place over the E major chord. It's not enough just to learn this as a cool E Mixolydian lick, because you might try this in a jam and it'll sound terrible. It has to be played over the E chord because everything in there is intrinsically tied to that E major chord. Next part of the solo here that features a lot of chord tone playing are these licks. All of these are strategically planned out. I imagine Vito probably wrote these solos rather than just kind of winged it, because they're all so structured. But if you look at these licks that are, again, taking place over the E major, they all start off on an E major chord tone, E, and then end on an E major chord tone, G sharp, G sharp, B, B, E, G sharp, B, E. Again, he's always starting on a chord tone, ending on a chord tone for that cool melodic chordal hookup. Remember, kids, play to the chords. Don't play to the key. A lot of players, myself included back in the day, would look at this E Mixolydian thing and be like, okay, E Mixolydian is the 5th mode of A major. And if I was thinking about it that way, I'd play a bunch of A major-y kind of stuff. But he's saying to himself, I'm playing over an E chord, I need to target the notes that are in the E chord. That's the first priority of melodic soloing. Halfway through the solo is where we do that key change, going from our E Mixolydian sound to a more G major or E minor kind of sound. Again, very common in Vito's solos. Now the chord progression here goes C, D, then he walks down from G, D over F sharp, E minor with a 9 in there, then we have C, D, and a B there at the very end. And he adjusts his soloing accordingly to make sure that everything fits melodically with those chords. Over the C chord, he logically starts off on a C note, and then at this point is where he goes to the D chord. That's giving him a lovely like D sus4 to D major kind of sound. Again, targeting those notes in that chord. This section takes place over the G to E minor kind of walk down. Starts off on the 3rd of that G chord, the B note. And he lands on E as the chord is on E minor 9. Now the licks at the end, these are supremely handy licks to always have in your back pocket because they always work over major chords. Okay, this is taking place over C, right? A C chord has 3 notes in it, C, E, and G. And the position that he's in gives him access to C, E, and G notes, all right there in one handy position. This note here in the middle, the D note, is the 9th or 2nd of the chord. Just a nice like kind of tension tone. So notice what we have right there is our first finger on the root on the 1st string, a little walk up here to the 3rd, and then the string right above that is the 5th of the chord, right? Part of the reason why this little box is so handy is because you can use this over pretty much any major chord anytime, whether you're on the 1 chord of the key, the 4 chord of the key, or the 5 chord of the key. That will always work and sound really cool. Just to give that some context, let's say if I was in the key of G major, for example, the major chords in that key are G major, C major, and D major. I could take that simple pattern and play it on any of those over those respective chords, and it would sound in key, and it would sound in chord, and it would sound real good. So like over G, I would put it here, so I'm in the G position. That's all in key. Over the C, I'd hike it up to the C position that we used in the solo. And over D, you play that exact same lick in the D position. You can hear how even just playing the licks by themselves like that gave you the sound of that chord progression really clearly. One little thing I want to point out about that too is inside of those little major chord boxes, the all-purpose major chord lick, this is also where you can get some of those cool like David Gilmour kind of isms. That kind of move. Again, really cool melodic stuff you can do with that little pattern. This box over the D chord, again, if you think about a D chord is taking place right here, you can really see how we're doing the 4th to 3rd of that chord, the root, the 5th to 3rd, and the root. Again, 3 of those notes are chord tones. One of them is a nice little passing tone just for tension. Now let's talk about what he's doing here over that B power chord build-up at the end of the solo, because this is really interesting, not only for the note targeting qualities, but also for the key changing qualities that makes this thing work. Okay, think of it this way. We've been in the key of G during this section of the solo, right? In the key of G, B is your 3rd, which means that it should be a B minor chord. That'd be kind of a drag to end this on a minor chord, right? It's kind of a letdown after all this heroic stuff he's been playing so far. And more importantly, he's got somewhere he needs to be going next, namely the key of E major whenever it goes back to that main riff. He needs to get back to that happy E major turf somehow, but he's stranded on this B, which should just be another, sad, dreary minor chord. But he had a really cool idea right here. Check this out. Okay, going to the key of E next, right? What would set that up better other than a B7? In the key of E major, B7 is the 5 chord, which is where we usually have the dominant. And a B7 doesn't want to go anywhere else other than to E major. That's just kind of the happiest, nicest, most logical resolution that our ears hear. So what Vito decided to do is whenever this B power chord came up, well, hell, it's just a power chord. It's not major or minor in any way. It's just root and 5th. There's nothing about that that screams happy major or sad minor. Vito decided to play over this B power chord as if it was B7 belonging to the key of E. He essentially took this drab old B minor chord that should have been there and looked at it as though it was a B dominant chord, which serves as like a nice little portal to get him back to the original key of E. Really cool, smart stuff going on right here. And that's a trick that actually people use a lot to change between a parallel major and parallel minor. If you want a whole video on that, let me know in the comment section because I would love to do a video on that stuff. So whenever he plays over that, these little dyads are pretty easy to see. He's sliding into the root and 5th. And then when he plays this, He's giving us the, what would that be, the 11, I guess? Yeah, 4th or 11th, as well as the flat 7, which is what's making it sound and feel like a dominant chord, is that flat 7 interval. And then just to really spell it out, that's just a B major arpeggio there at the end, which again sets us up for that E major return perfectly. In summary, what I would say here is anytime you're wanting to figure out why your favorite guitar player sounds so freaking good, don't just learn their licks. Learn the rhythm guitar part too. Learn what those licks are taking place over. And that's gonna matter more than what position they were in or what, picking pattern they used or whatever. If you really wanna find out somebody's melodic secrets, look at the licks and look at how they relate to the chords. Intervals are everything. I say this all the time to my students. If you want to understand music, you gotta learn intervals. And this is a great way to do it. Take a look at a lick and say, what are the intervals he's choosing here against that chord that he's playing over at that time? Once you get in that mindset, you'll start figuring out what makes your favorite players tick in no time. So there you go, guys, a melodic solo and breakdown of one of the sickest solos from Vito Bratta's catalog. I love learning his stuff. There's always so many cool ideas and stuff you can take from it, so let me know in the comments section what other Vito solos you want to see broken down on a future installment of Weekend Wankshop. Thanks so much for watching, liking this video, and subscribing to my channel. We're getting close to 400,000 subs. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so and help me reach this historic and monumental number. And a huge shout out to my Patreon community for suggesting that I do this very video. Again, sign up over at the Patreon page, even at just $1 a month. You're gonna get backing tracks, bonus lessons, tabs for this solo, and a lot of other stuff, as well as access to a community of awesome people like yourself. Patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Click the link in the video description below. Thanks again for watching. Now get away from the computer and go play some guitar. Less clicking, more picking.